And welcome back to Chicago Bulls Insider. Today we're talking about Ayo Dosunmu and if he is the most disrespected gem on the Chicago Bulls. Next, we're going to be talking about Matas Buzelis as he ranks top 5 amongst players coming back into their second season here in the NBA. And so before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to slam dunk on that subscribe button, just like Matas Buzelis slam dunks in games. And so in exchange for slamming on that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Chicago Bulls. Make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Chicago Bulls Insider family as we talk nothing but Chicago Bulls basketball. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it. And let's start with Ayo Dosunmu. And so if you've not got a chance to see this, this is on Bleacher Report talking about every NBA team's most disrespected hidden gem. And so let's go ahead and see what they said here about Ayo Dosunmu. And so once again, you can see this article on Bleacher Report. And so just paraphrasing this, starts off by saying that Ayo Dosunmu is more well-known than most other players on the list, but he's not a household name. Says that discussions about him have a tendency to gravitate towards what he isn't, mainly a true point guard or a knockdown shooter. Says that at 6'5", Dosunmu effectively blurs the line between a wing and a guard. While he shouldn't be running the offense for more than fits and bursts, his rim pressure and finishing are above average for someone his size. It says that he has also shown glimmers of improved playmaking, coming around ball screens, and knows how to facilitate when attacking downhill. Peyton Pritchard, Tyrese Halliburton were the only players last season to match his scoring efficiency at 57.1% and assist rate at 12.4 on drives, while finishing at least as many of them at 371. Says that much of Dosunmu's time with the Chicago Bulls has seen him line up defensively at the point of attack. That is where he's best suited on most nights, but he's proven that he can tussle with select threes and fours too. All right. And so, starting with the point of the article here, is he one of the most disrespected hidden gems? And so I do think so. I think that a lot of people really forget that Ayo Dosunmu is out there because Ayo Dosunmu does so many things for this Chicago Bulls team. And I think that it really goes underrated. And I also think that, like, when you look at just this offseason, much of the talk has been around Kobe White. It's been around Josh Giddey. It's been around Vooch and everything else. But really quietly, nobody has talked about Ayo Dosunmu. It looks like that he's ahead of schedule. And I think he's slated to start doing 5-on-5s and things like that. So he's ahead of schedule there. He's doing his charity event. He's always giving back. And I talked about how he's won the Community Assist Award for the NBA. And so there's so many things that Ayo Dosunmu does that really it's unnoticed, whether it's on the court or off the court, and it's super impactful. And so I think this season, Ayo Dosunmu to me is a player that I have listed as a breakout player. I do think that he's going to come back this season and he is going to break out this year. And so I know it was tough for him, as far as shooting the three ball, which it does talk about in that Bleacher Report, paragraph or snippet or whatever. And he did. He struggled shooting the basketball, but I do think that he was starting to find his way before he went out with the shoulder. And so I think that when you look at the way that this offense is set up, and just the way that it's looking to play fast and things like that, I think that Ayo Dosunmu is going to really benefit from that because he's a guy that will run the floor. But number two, what I like about Ayo is that he's so versatile. He can be a guy that can play either on or off the ball. And so he can be a guy that is a point guard that can get you into your offense, and he knows how to go out there and get himself a bucket. Also, too, he knows how to play off others. I think that he understands where to be, when players are driving and things like that, to be available for the three-point shot. And he plays with no fear out there. And so even if Ayo misses shots and things like that, you're never going to see it on Ayo's demeanor. I think he's still going to go out there and approach the game the same way. And so that's what I love about him offensively. And then I think defensively is really where he is going to really make the biggest difference for the Chicago Bulls. I think that his ability to really go 1 to 4, I think just makes him a guy that he's going to get some minutes here. And I think that he's a guy that the Bulls are going to really have to depend on, because I'm not sure that I believe in Patrick Williams moving forward here. I know he has been a very good defender, but man, he took a step back here. And I think between Ayo Dosunmu and then Isaac Okoro, these are two guys that the Bulls are going to have to depend on. And so going into that point of 1-4, look, I'm not saying that he's a guy that is just going to necessarily go out there and hold up against fours and things like that. But I promise you this: if you do score in him and you're power forward, it isn't going to be one of those things where you're going to turn and you're going to do the too small dance and all that stuff like that when you go against Ayo Dosunmu. It's going to be a tough bucket that is scored there. And that's all you want from your primary defender. Like, he's a guy that can go out there, he can get on ball, he can hound you that way. But absolutely, if you get into a switch situation, you don't worry about that with Ayo Dosunmu. You know that he's eventually going to turn the player into his help. He's going to also be able to hold his own physically out there, and he's a guy that can make a play and possibly generate a turnover. And so you love that about him. This is why I'm saying that he is primed for a great season, because they need defense on this team, and he definitely checks the box here along with Isaac Okoro. And this is why I think that he is really in the running to be a starter here. It's just going to come down to really, what does Billy Donovan want in the starting lineup, and how does the training camp battle really play out here? Because you do have Isaac Okoro, you have Patrick Williams, you have to throw Ayo out there as well, and you also have Kevin Huerter. And so does he want to go more, with an offensive type of game, or do you want to go with a guy like Ayo Dosunmu that he gives you a little bit of everything? It maybe is not the prettiest at times, but man, I think that it's super effective. And make no mistake about it, I think that Ayo wants to be a starter, but if he doesn't start, I think he has to be one of the first people to come off the bench. And I can imagine like a lineup with him and Trey Jones as far as coming off the bench. That could be dangerous between the two of these guys, because I've said this before with Trey Jones. I think defensively, he's a lot better than what people give him. And you're looking at two players that play with a high IQ level. And so, look, breakout season for Ayo Dosunmu. And I think you're going to see him more as a leader, which is what this team needs as far as trying to change the identity and just turn into a winner. So that's why I like to bet on him and Kobe White really every season, because these guys are going to get it done. And so with that being said, I wanted to go ahead and jump into the last part here and talking about Matas Buzelis. And so if you've not got a chance to see this, you can head over to ESPN.com and talking about the most interesting sophomores to watch here for the 25-26 season. And so to be clear about this, just talking about 10 players that are listed on this list, but Matas Buzelis, he reaches number 4 on this list. And so just paraphrasing this, and we're just going to be looking at just the main point as to why they went ahead and ranked him at number 4. And so I think that this is very interesting, and it really points to just really what he means to the Chicago Bulls' future. And so it says that Buzelis was once looked at as a contender for the number 1 pick in the 2024 draft class, pointing at his significant potential as a tall, skilled perimeter scorer. As he continues to add strength and hone his shooting, Buzelis has a huge runway, both from development and role perspective with the Bulls, which are in a play-in limbo. Their best path forward likely involves the perspective of Buzelis' star turn. So next, talking about this here. And so it says that while that may not happen in one summer, the Bulls' commitment to playing up-tempo should favor Buzelis. He should see more of the ball in his hands, operating in space, and get a chance to expand his shot creating skills both for himself and for his teammates. Talking about Josh Giddey and that contract standoff, which we've talked about that several times here, but it says that still only 20 years old, what type of sophomore leap he can manage is arguably the most important big picture storyline for the Bulls going into the season. All right, so look, I am right there with them. And so this is Jeremy Wu that writes this, by the way. And so I think that, yes, starting with that last point, Ayo Dosunmu, or not Ayo Dosunmu, excuse me, Matas Buzelis here, I think definitely is tied to the Chicago Bulls and their future, because when you see what he has done in year 1 and just the amount of attention that he's already drawn, because I've talked about this where I think Paul George has mentioned him, Kevin Durant has mentioned him. I think even Carmelo Anthony has mentioned Matas Buzelis. And Matas Buzelis has really turned heads every time that he was in his summer league play. I think I talked about just the announcers talking about just how well Matas Buzelis was doing out there and how he looks. And so we all see this as Chicago Bulls fans, and you have got to love the way that he finished down the stretch for this team, because once he did get into the starting lineup, 13 points a game, 4.5 rebounds, 1.9 assists. And I think for Matas Buzelis going into year number 2, my thing is, can he be a guy that turns into a 16 to 20 point scorer? Can he be a guy that gets you 6 to 8 rebounds a game? Can he be a guy that gets you 3 to 4 assists a game? Because I think that if he can do that, the Chicago Bulls will definitely be on their way here, because now you're talking about a player that certainly would be a star, could be trending towards being a franchise player. And what I love about Matas Buzelis is something that cannot be measured on the stat sheet. It is his mentality. It's his makeup, that if there's a challenge in front of him, if there's the wall, he's trying to run through it versus to go around it. He is going to get through this thing. And I think that that's what you saw in his rookie season, is just resilience. That type of resilience, that type of dog mentality that he has, I think that that is something that you definitely want to build with. Now, does he take a step forward? We're going to find out. I do believe that, yes, he is going to have the ball in his hands a lot more. We talked about this during the summer league, that look, for the most part, I thought that he looked very comfortable handling, the basketball, which is something he is going to do. And I think the Bulls really, if Matas Buzelis can show that he can get a bucket in the half court, like be a bucket, I think that that really could go a long way as to what they would do with their future plan of maybe Vooch, because that is one of the things that I like about Vooch, is that he can go out there, he can get you a bucket in the half court. And so if Matas Buzelis can take a step forward there, I think defensively, he's going to be a lot better because he's stronger. He understands the principles and what's going on in an NBA game. And I think how to guard, and just I think more accustomed to the speed of the game. We already saw what he can do as a shot blocker there. So I think that that's something that does get better. I want to see, does he become more of a shot blocker now, where it's not necessarily him getting the chase downs or from behind, but is he a guy that just literally stuffs the ball in your face when you do try to just go straight at him? And so that, I think, is going to come down to just, is he much stronger? Does he get pushed off the spots and things like that? But we'll find out. But make no mistake about it, if Matas Buzelis takes this step forward, now, I start to think, like, will players around the league say, okay, hey, they're taking notice of Matas Buzelis. Will they be more willing to maybe even sign to come to the Chicago Bulls? And so I know that that's a huge jump, but that kind of goes into my first point, where I was talking about, Paul George mentioning him, Kevin Durant, and some other stars as well. So I think that if he does take that next step, he's going to start to get more of a buzz here around Chicago. And so this young core could be really set to take off with him, Josh Giddey, Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu, and then maybe Isaac Okoro. And it's just, you got Jalen Terry, and the list kind of, or Julian Phillips, and the list kind of goes on and on and on. But anyway, you guys let me know in the comments here what you guys are thinking. Does Matas Buzelis take another step here? Is he worth the top 5 spot out of 10 rookies or 10 sophomores coming back this season? Next, let me know what you guys are thinking as far as Ayo Dosunmu. Is he a hidden gem here for the Chicago Bulls that is disrespected? I think he is, and I think he's in for a very surprising season for a lot of people out there. And so you guys let me know in the comments here if Ayo Dosunmu is going to surprise some people this season. Also, too, let me know if you think Matas Buzelis is going to take a major step forward here and really pave the way for the Chicago Bulls and the future build of this team. And so, as we always say, look, go Bulls, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.